And we are back. Welcome back to the Premier League prediction series after a week of predictions that went very well in terms of the Champions League, then went horrendously in terms of the Europa League, Europa Conference League, and last night's Premier League game. But we are here today to talk about the 10 Premier League games taking place this weekend on Game Week 36, starting tonight with the first game of the week between Luton and Everton. So fantasy football fans, make sure you are getting your teams locked in today because the matches are starting this evening. Before we get into it, as always, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you do enjoy my prediction series, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Without any further ado, we have 10 games to go. Let's get into it. Game week 36 of the Premier League, just 3 more game weeks to go. And we start off with tonight's game. At the bottom of the table, it is Luton Town taking on Everton. Now, Everton, of course, are now safe, barring some bizarre circumstance where their points appeal results in them getting even more points deducted, which, quite frankly, I don't think is going to happen. So Everton are virtually safe. Luton Town are smack bang right in the middle of the thick of it. And it's must win for Luton Town, but it was must win against Brentford a couple of weeks ago, and we all know that finished 5-1 to Brentford. You've got to look at Everton's performances over the last few weeks. 4 home games in a row where they've won without conceding. Obviously, their one away performance, the 6-0 defeat to Chelsea. So there is some hope for Luton. Luton, of course, did beat Everton earlier on away from home in the season as well. However, I look at recent performances, no win, I think now in something like 14 or 15 for Luton. You look at Everton's record, I just don't see Luton getting the win. I really don't. The one thing I will say is that Luton do always score, and it's the oldest cliche in football, but the first goal is going to say an awful lot about this game. I just don't think Luton are going to get the win. I desperately want them to. Obviously, we've got the Luton scarf in the background, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Will Adebayo coming back into the side make a difference? Will Ross Barkley be able to step it up against his boyhood club? We shall see. But for me, I just don't see Luton getting the win. 1-1 draw in that one. From the bottom of the table to the top of the table as we do our Saturday lunchtime kickoff now between Arsenal and Bournemouth. Now, this game was very interesting last season and was a goal in the game after I think it was just 13 seconds last year from Philip Billing for Bournemouth, shocking Arsenal before, of course, the Arsenal then went for it. But this season, it's a whole different setup for both teams, really. Arsenal are playing a lot better, but Bournemouth are a completely different team to the side that went to the Emirates last season. I think this is going to be a really tough game for Arsenal. I really do. Both sides like to play a lot of football, but again, you look at the form that Arsenal are in, you look at that performance against Tottenham in the North London derby last week, you have to fancy Arsenal to pile the pressure on City once again because they are playing first, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Arsenal. That then brings us to 3 o'clock kickoffs. And the first sort of game this weekend that has really nothing on the line other than overall position. Brentford, of course, are now safe. Fulham are more than safe from relegation, but realistically aren't going to get a European place. So this is just about pride at this point in the season. Brentford look like they're going to have Ivan Toney back and available for this one. He's going to be looking to prove both his fitness and his abilities with that Euro squad announcement imminent. I think Brentford should win this. I'm going to go for 2-1. Fulham got a reasonably good result at home to Palace last week. But I think travelling away to the Bees this weekend, I'm going to go for the Brentford win. Back to the relegation fight now for the other 2 3 o'clock kickoffs. The first of those is going to be Burnley taking on Newcastle, alphabetically, of course. And we have to look at Burnley's form and say it is just 1 defeat in 10 now. Whereas Newcastle saw off one of the other promoted sides last week, 5-1, breaking the record for the most goals scored against a single team in a Premier League season, with 13 across the 2 games against Sheffield United. I can't split these two. I think there's going to be goals. I think both sides are playing some really good free-flowing football at the moment. Both teams scoring goals for fun, but both teams conceding up an awful lot of chances as well. And if we're being honest, Sheffield United probably should have scored 2 or 3 last week, albeit Newcastle still would have scored their 5. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I can see this one being very tight, going all the way to the end. Could see this one being decided by 1 goal late on one way or another. But for me, this one is a 2-2 draw. Which then brings us to the other final relegation game. Sheffield United, already relegated, taking on the team of controversy at the moment, of course, in Nottingham Forest. I said about it with the Luton Everton game, it is must win for Nottingham Forest. The one thing that you would say, though, which is, again, another classic football cliche, Sheffield United are already relegated. So there's no pressure on them now. The only real thing they're playing for is to not have the worst defensive record in Premier League history, but they're in strong danger of that happening. They're just 3 goals away from conceding 100, which will be the first time that's happened, not in a 42-game season. So Sheffield United are going to have to start producing something if they want to avoid that stat, but I just don't think they've got it. You've got to look at the chances that Forest created against City last week. They missed some real big chances and had an actual opportunity to beat Man City last week. They produced that sort of performance against Sheffield United. They'll create an awful lot more chances than they did against Man City. So in the end, I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Forest. And if that's how the results go, draws for Luton and Burnley and a win for Forest, you'd say the relegation battle is near enough over. That then brings us back to the title race for the evening game on Saturday between Manchester City and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Not really too much to say about this. We all know what Wolves are capable of on their day. They were the first side, I believe, to beat Manchester City this season at the game at Molineux, albeit due to Rodri being suspended, who technically still remains unbeaten if you want to not include the penalty shootout, because it wasn't a game in 90 minutes or extra time. It was settled on penalties. Anyway, Manchester City will, of course, have Rodri available for this one. You would expect Manchester City to win this one. Haaland looked good coming off the bench last week. You'd expect him to start this one now and look to continue his goal-scoring form as he looks for back-to-back golden boots. No one's going to be too surprised. I'm going to go for a City win here, but the scoreline is going to be 3-1 in my opinion. That then brings us on to Sunday, where we start off with 2 o'clock kickoffs, the first of which is between Brighton and Aston Villa. And, I mean, this is just arguably the toughest prediction of the season so far. Both teams have dropped off a cliff in the last couple of weeks. Brighton haven't won a single game since March, but that was the second leg against Roma after they lost 4-0 in the first leg. Aston Villa arguably should have lost to Chelsea last week at home. They then got absolutely blown away by Olympiacos last night in what was an incredible performance from the Greek side. And I look at them now, and I look at them still having Martinez not available for this game, and I think they're really going to struggle. You could really see it in that Olympiacos game last night, how their style of play was drastically affected by not having Emi Martinez in goal to start off their build-up play. It's an opportunity for Brighton to capitalise. It really is. But Brighton are playing awful as well. So I just have to look at the overall quality of the players, which individuals are performing better at the moment. And I think individually, Aston Villa have the better players right now. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Villa. But honestly, this game could be absolutely anything. The other game at 2 o'clock is between Chelsea and West Ham. And speaking about last night, Chelsea were absolutely fantastic in their win over Tottenham after, like we already spoke about, almost getting the win against Aston Villa. West Ham, on the other hand, again, not playing the best of stuff at the moment. Yes, they did get a good 2-2 draw at home to Liverpool, but Liverpool missed an awful lot of chances yet again in that match. So I don't think you can read too much into it in terms of West Ham performance. I think if Chelsea played the way they did last night, they're going to produce the same sort of result. It's another London derby. They're going to back themselves to win at home. And I'm going to go for back-to-back 2-0 wins to Chelsea. That then brings us to the main event game of the weekend. It is Liverpool taking on Tottenham. Tottenham's Champions League hopes arguably now in tatters. Liverpool's title hopes arguably now in tatters. So both sides are going to be looking for some sort of response to what's been a really bad couple of weeks for them. Obviously, Liverpool, again, dropping points against West Ham after losing to Crystal Palace, after dropping points against Manchester United, after getting knocked out of the Europa League. Tottenham off the back of the North London derby embarrassment and then the London derby embarrassment against Chelsea last night. I have to look at these two sides on paper and say, basically, Liverpool should be winning this game, especially at Anfield. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Liverpool, but you just don't know with Liverpool at the moment. They look like they're going to bow out in some sort of horrendous style to sign off Jurgen Klopp, but this is their last real big game at Anfield with Jurgen Klopp in charge. They'll be looking to end it with a good note, so I'm going to go for the Liverpool win. And then finally, the Monday Night Football is Crystal Palace against Manchester United. And I've spent all of the last 4 or 5 weeks singing Crystal Palace's praises and quite nearly damning Manchester United's poor performances. So I would be an absolute hypocrite if I turn around now and said I thought Manchester United are going to win this game. Our record against Crystal Palace in general is horrendous. We never do well against Crystal Palace, be it at home or at Selhurst Park. We do awful against Crystal Palace. And right now, we are playing some of the worst football we have ever played. And right now, Crystal Palace are playing some of the best football they have ever played. So, I'm going for 3-1 Palace. I don't really think there's too much more to say. I would expect Manchester United to score in this game. I really would. But from what I've seen of Crystal Palace, from what I've seen of Manchester United defensively, I think Crystal Palace will pick us off. I really do. And I think any chance of us getting any sort of Europa position at the moment is in real jeopardy. And I think Crystal Palace is just going to make it even worse. It's going to be FA Cup final or bust for Manchester United. And quite frankly, right now, I think it's probably just going to be bust. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. A fascinating Game Week 36 coming up for you over the next 4 days. Is the title race going to be decided this weekend? Is the relegation scrap going to be decided this weekend? Let me know all your thoughts, like I say, down below. And I will see you again on Monday, where I'll have my Champions League predictions for the second legs, as well as that Crystal Palace Manchester United post-match reaction. I'll see you there.